this is Mike, and everybody watches AccessTV.org.
Welcome to Conversatio, the show that brings lessons to you on a better way to live. I'm your host, Prince Lee, and today's show is about the mind, more specifically, the community mind. We have with us today a repeat guest, Miss Maria Gracco. Ms. Gracco is a practitioner, mind healer, and author of the book, God Does Exist. Good morning.
Good morning, Prince.
Yes, today you want to deal with the matter of the mind and how the community mind, in general, the public, has been affected by some of the practices of the day. You know, whether it's racism, whether it's the economy, how is that mind being affected by the issues of the day? Personally, I feel that the mind is basically a direction. You have a certain mind towards something. But as a mind healer, give me your thoughts on what the mind is.
Mind is God, God's mind that controls us all. We should not be afraid by the human, what people think in the human world, because it's only one mind that controls us all.
That mind being
God,
yours.
God's mind.
So is it safe to say that we shouldn't worry about what others are thinking, their mindsets, or morality, shall we say,
That's right.
and to have our minds more attuned with the mind of God?
God. That's
So
true.
the matchup between our minds and God's minds, as opposed to our minds and
Yes.
the world mind.
Yes, I'm going to give an example, if I may. Last night I went bowling. I haven't gone bowling in 5 years, and I love bowling. It's fun. So when we went bowling, was a friend of mine came as well. That she used to bowl in the bowling league, and then she got hurt, and she didn't want to bowl anymore. So I says, I want to go tonight. Why don't you come with us? So we went bowling. And her husband, who's a very spiritual man, he was concerned, so are you sure, Maria, she's going to be able to bowl? Yes, she is. Says, remember, Howard, it's only one mind that controls it all. And she did a good job. She scored 112 the first game. So mind, if we trust mind, it controls us all in good directions.
If the community mind, the overall mind, this world mind, which
Human
is
mind.
human mind,
Human mind,
which is
wow.
like very, very, it has to be a very, very complex thing. If that human mind is getting battered by so many divergent thoughts, how do we work on bringing some sort of healthiness to that community mind? How do you help the community mind?
If only one person believes that all of them are controlled by one mind, which is God mind, you will see changes. I've seen changes. Prayer, through prayer.
Well, is the burden on our religious community, our faith communities, is it a burden for them to give us a better picture of what we should do, or somehow increase our faith?
Well, yes, we should increase our faith, but we have the faith. All it takes is one person. One person could make a big difference. Jesus made a big difference. Could make a big difference. One person.
It's an interesting concept. I personally tend to shy away from the whole concept of the Messiah concept, where this one, the Moses sort of thing, where this one person is going to make a tremendous difference. And this currently, the example could be President Obama. You know, how many of the black communities? Well, you know, that's his presence is going to make that huge difference. But do you think that an individual could make that type of difference?
Yes, one individual could make a big difference. Because that individual is being controlled by God. And God is universal. God sees all of us perfect. Yes, it could make a big difference. Jesus made a big difference, didn't he?
Oh, yes.
He made a big difference.
There's no doubt about that. Well, okay. That being the case, how does the public, how does the community kind of like lock into like potentially who is that person? You know, how do you determine who you see in the neighborhood, whether or not they're a godly, a man of God, whether it's, you know, is it your majority
We don't have to see, to believe. We shouldn't judge either. We just have to believe. I see proofs, for instance, that people were fighting across the street. And me being here, I go to God by saying the Lord's Prayer. And as I say the Lord's Prayer, it's not us that does the work. It's God that does the work through prayer. So by saying the Lord's Prayer, I seen results. People stopped. God, with our prayer, with the Lord's Prayer, God changes people's thinking. I've seen it. I've seen the results many times.
And that's part of the tools of your practice.
That's my practice, yes.
You're a mind healer. Again, that's my concern, is that how do we heal this community mind? Whether you just put a shingle out and say, everybody in the community, 20, 50 people a day you would see in a little quickie session with them, or just
one word,
prayer.
One word of comfort will change their thinking. At the first visit, that I want to say one word: God is with you. God is mine. And already God changes their thoughts. It's a change of thought. We are what we believe. We are what we believe.
That's very interesting.
It's fear. Everyone is living in fear. The unknown. Because the world's changing so fast for the better, and people are afraid. They were afraid when Jesus came. They were afraid. They were afraid of the truth. They were afraid. Yeah.
That's a very interesting concept, and why is because this session today, and we had expected another guest, was inspired based upon the thought of this overall community. Well, how do you help them? Okay, and when you think about normal mind healing, shall we say, with the psychologists in the sessions, in the mini sessions, so you're seeing this analyst for X amount of time for years and a year and a half, and this analyst costs hundreds of dollars an hour, and the general community doesn't have the dynamics of spending that much time, spending that much money on the quote-unquote analyst, okay? So how would you get this multitude of people okay, who are, at the very least, most of them have apathy. Most of them are disgusted, at the very least. We're not saying that everybody has a mental mind problem, but at the very least there's this overall apathy, disgusted attitude. You know, so you couldn't afford to send them to a conventional analyst, okay? But, like you say, if it's just a matter of saying a word, a sentence, and that would create a different feeling within these people, that sounds doable. That sounds doable. You know, would you be prepared to open up a clinic for that?
Yes, I am.
Oh, how interesting is that?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
Yes, I am, because I could give you some examples, healings that took place. One Sunday morning, I went to, I go to church every Sunday morning, and when I lived in Maryland, I used to pick up a couple guys that didn't drive. So one day, me and Bill went to pick up Dennis, as normally we used to do there every Sunday morning. When I walked in, he didn't come out to meet us. I says, "Oh, what's wrong? Let's go find out why Dennis didn't come out." So we went up the stairs, and two people were there saying, "No, Dennis is sick. He won't be able to go." So, "What do you mean he won't be able to go? Why is he sick?" So I went in. He was in his bed. He says, "I'm sorry, Maria. I was sick all night, very sick, and I will not be able to go to church today." I says, "God's children do not get sick." He jumped out of bed and he said, "You're right, Maria. I'm not sick." Instant cure. It's incredible. I don't know how it's God that's doing it. Instantly. He jumped out of bed, he washed his face, he changed his shirt, out he went, completely healed. And I don't want to tell you why he was sick. He was very sick all night. That's just one of them. That's only one of them. One word of comfort changes. It's only a thought. It's what we believe. One word changes people. I say, "Yeah, okay, I'm not sick. How can I be sick? God is not sick. God heals. God's mind."
So then again, the reverse of that is that much of the sickness is mental.
It's man-made. It's not real.
So then it becomes doubly important about the conditioning of this mind and having this mind one with God. That becomes important. And I guess by definition that puts again, that much more burden on our clergy, on the administration of our churches and whatnot, to train more. How many faiths where the congregation is taught to have faith in Jesus, which is accurate, but don't have a clue on how they should manage their thoughts? Is there a way that the average person could somehow start to manage his thoughts any better, that you feel?
With our help, God will change their thoughts. We pray for the community. That's why I was sent here to Hartford, because I'm a strong believer, and I was healed. God healed me so many times. And our thoughts, God's thoughts, which is mind, will change the community thoughts. Even if they don't want to say they don't know Jesus, like we talk about other religions in general, all of them, they're all believing God. Even people that say they don't believe in God, but they do believe something does exist.
Right,
Even that,
being,
it's because it's the same God. It's one God that loves us all. We are all His creation. But so much confusion has been going on. People sell fear. People sell fear. You're going.
Is there any way that you feel that, again, we're talking about the average person in the community, at the very least, if they didn't have the ability to heal their mind, is there any way that they could at least be able to think, well, I got a problem, to look at their actions and their mindset, well, gee, say to yourself, well, self, you got a problem. You're thinking this, you're thinking that. That's not acceptable. To at least be aware, and to being aware of a problem, that's the first step. You know, maybe you don't have the power to change it, but at least, you know, how do you look, at what point do you look at yourself and be worried about the condition of your mind? How do you determine that?
If the persons have the ability to say that, God loves that person, and God will send angels on His way to introduce, to talk to them. So we have so many beautiful community. In the community, we have so many organizations that everyone is reaching out to help. There are so many, especially in Hartford. It seems to be bad, but it's not. Because, I mean, yesterday I was walking. What's all those people doing here? There was about 50 people up the street. Says we go to a meeting. What kind of meeting? NA meeting. Oh, that's beautiful. They're called 12 steps. Everyone that goes to a meeting, they go to a meeting because I have a problem. I have a problem, so they want to go to a meeting because they all have the Serenity Prayer, the Lord's Prayer, 12 steps, and they all say the Supreme Mind. They all believe. All of them believe. It doesn't matter if how poor or badly they dress or they live in the street. It's not because they really don't believe. They went through so much. They say, well, God didn't help me. I says, well, now is the time. Now is the time. Jesus says it'll be in the year 2000. Everyone will accept my gospel. So it's God that changed the world through Jesus. And we are the 2,000 years later. We have proofs all the time. My sister told me not too long ago in the hospital, the doctor gave an injection to the mother and daughter, and they were both going to die. But they call 5 people of faith. What's faith? They believe in God. Both of them lived. So who's doing this? God. God is doing the healing. He's real.
And your explanation is just God is real. In your book, show our audience here, God Exists by Maria Gracco. You set out to prove to the average person that God does exist. And I know you firmly believe that. And I guess the examples that you're given are, well, the fact that I was healed, or some people that I know were healed, then that's evidence that God exists. Is that the first step? Where it's clear in people's mind that He does, because there's a debate. Some people, well, yes, if everything's okay, He exists. Okay, and as soon as it gets to be a little problem here, problem there, then doubt creeps in.
People want proofs. People want proofs. So show me that He exists. So I'm going to live a truth.
The life of Jesus is not enough for them, you think?
Because they don't, why? Jesus is not here walking physically right now, but the Christ is here. The Comforter is here that He promised us. But I am a living truth because I was very sick, 1983. The medication made me very, very sick. And I remember waking up at 1:30 in the morning, scream with pain in my head. And I'm calling my daughter, my son-in-law. I says, call John. Marisa, call John. I want to know. She says, Mom, what can John do? He's sleeping. What can John do? I says, I know, I have such pain in my head. I can't take it. So I called the family doctor. Family doctor came and he checked my pulse, my whatever. He says, there's nothing to worry about, Maria. You just have a little bit of high blood pressure. And the pain was still there. That was not what I wanted to hear. It was a human belief. High blood pressure. So you tell me I have a lot of blood pressure. You're not comforting me. That was not comforting me. So, but thank God that I had a beautiful picture of Jesus Christ, the heart of Jesus, in my bedroom. The only thing I remember looking at the picture, and I felt something push me off the bed into the toilet, and whatever was in my body, everything came out. The pain was completely gone. Completely gone. Okay, this was through Jesus. God heals through Jesus. Like Jesus says, no one goes to the Father but through me. Right? So the pain was completely gone. On Monday, I went to the doctor to tell him what had happened. He says, you could have a stroke. He says, I could have a stroke, so what do you want me to do? Or continue on taking the medication. I says, I went home, I says, something's wrong here. So I threw only one pill away, which was Tegretol. And 20 years later, I met somebody by taking the medicine. He did have a stroke. He was in the wheelchair for 20 years. So this is why I'm so much against medicine. So God healed me through Jesus. So I'm a living truth. Here I am. This was 1983, and then slowly, with the help of other people, I was able to throw all the pills away. So I haven't taken any medication in 12 years. And I was evaluated, I was examined by doctors, and they gave me a clean bill of health, mentally, physically, and spiritually. The doctors seen it, how God was healing people. So that's proof. That's enough proof right there.
I personally feel, getting back to the concept of mind, I personally feel that mind is also your direction, what you have a tendency to do. It's like, for an example, a young girl. Society tells her to be patient, wait until you get married, before you have, sex. You don't want to have a child out of wedlock, whatever have you.
That's right.
But how many young women, regardless of the age, it could be a young girl, 12 or 13, okay, and she has the mind, I want a child. I don't care about the morality and what society is saying or doing. Her mind, her direction is bent a certain way. So, and that is one of the things I think about, like mind, where your direction, whatever you think, your thoughts direct you to. If that's the case, if my definition somehow is in effect, I just really wonder about the directions that our minds are taking us into. When think like, mass killings and things like that, where are we going?
Well, unfortunately, I don't know why today's society, it's more tuned into make a lot of money, become rich. And the parents, many parents, do neglect the children. So as a child, she's rebellious. I want to have a baby because I'm going to show my mother how to love a baby. That's the way I feel.
That's interesting.
I didn't have a problem with my children. I had a problem with my children. My daughter was 24 when she got married. Because I was believed, education, sports, music, of course, church. One Sunday went by without me taking my children to church. They went to church. Maybe Sunday. Church was a must. I kept my children busy. I was there in the morning to make sure that they dress up nice, give them breakfast, to make them I used to give them a lunch box. You make a sandwich, and you give them a hug, and you send them off to school. And when the children come home from school, the mother or father, one of the parents should be there. One of the parents should be there to embrace the children. You sit down and you want to know how was your school day, and now let's sit down, relax, and let's do your homework. That's what you do. And then, of course, you could play a little bit. We need everything in life. Life's got to be balanced. We need everything in life.
It's very interesting that in your answer, in the example of the young lady who had, at a very early age, is said, well, I want to have a child, regardless of what society thinks.
Yeah.
And maybe part of that rationale for her to think such is that she wants it done right. She's looking at her childhood and how she may be treating or not treated, then to get this whole concept of being raised right. Or maybe I don't feel love, and first opportunity I get,
Okay.
I'm going to create this thing that I can really love.
Yes.
And
that's true.
the odd part about that is that if you have enough young ladies thinking that, all of a sudden you have a society with all these kids born out of wedlock and problems and things associated with that, with the welfare and all that. Just because you have X amount of people who have the mindset of being loved, which I guess is a whole nother show. It's a show on love, which I guess is also God.
It's funny how you come up with the right question, and I talked to many people, for many years. You mentioned welfare before. I know a lady that she made a mistake. She trusts the man, and she got pregnant, and he was a minister, and he did not marry her. And she was very disappointed, but she loved her child. She kept the child, and she went welfare. And she took care of her child, and she went to church, and, she's a very forgiving person. But the worst part was about welfare. When she went to the office to get welfare, help, the social worker says to her, if you go and get pregnant again, have another child, you get more money. So the welfare is good, but it's terrible. They encourage, because they don't believe in God. They took God, America tried to take, some Americans, I should say, not America, they took the Lord's Prayer, they took prayer off the school, away from the school.
Right.
We don't need God, And watch television, who's that on television, You have a baby out of wedlock. That's not God's, they don't know. People like that, they know, but I don't know why it changed, which is terrible. And because it's the end of times, I guess. That's why it changed.
I don't know.
According to the Bible
in
in Revelation.
It seems to me that a lot is...
According to the Bible in Revelation, that's what it was, Prince.
A lot of things seem to be done, or policy, especially the policy we're talking about now, God in the schools, of trying to be absolutely fair with everybody. Well, if we have prayers, there's a mention of God in the schools, there got to be some people in that classroom that are going to be offended. It's going to be so against their principles, or how they thought that. But most of all, we want to be fair to those people who don't want to be bothered with God. Therein lies the problem. And you can't be all things to all people. The only body who can be all things with all people is God. And to exclude him because some people may not believe gets to be a huge problem.
Well, it is a problem. I know many people, they're sick, they have problems, but when they pray, life is better to handle. We handle life better with God. People that don't believe in God, unfortunately, they pay the consequences, and they end up suffering, and then finally they pass on. I know people. My father came in this country, he was 49, he didn't have anything. He had the skill of a builder, and he had his clothes and his tools. how come if my father was able to do it, he went to work for 85 cents an hour. 1956 we talk about. And he wasn't a great cook. He ate pasta and potatoes every day. In 14 months, my father worked 14 months alone, and he had to take care of my young brother. My younger brother was only 12. How did he do it? He worked, then he worked in construction, made a little bit more money, but he knew how to stretch the dollar.
He was a man of faith.
Of course he was a man of faith, yes. My father used to read the Bible with one of his paisani. He read the Bible if he could, But he was just a good person, even if he didn't read the Bible. He was just a good person. He was in the war. When you're in the war and you see so much unnecessary killing, my father was a man of God. He didn't like it. And he used to say, be grateful for what you have. But in 14 months, I don't know, my father did it. But he met a lot of nice people. People helped him. There were a lot of good people that helped my father. And we came here, my mother and my sisters. In 14 months, my father had a beautiful house, full furnished for the family.
So in closing, then part of the correcting of the condition of the human mind or the community mind is to have a little more educated faith and prayer.
Faith, yes, faith is important. You can have all the education in the world. One time I stayed with some people.
Well, I'm sorry, Maria. I don't want to cut you short. It's interesting again, as usual. Thank you for our guest, Maria Gracco, and another session with Conversatio. Remember, the mind can be healed.
Yes, mind is healed. God heals it all.